So I want you guys to pay attention to something. We recently just got One Piece chapter 1121, where I think is a culmination and check-in as to where we are in regards to the One Piece story. It's just an update in regards to the big players and major players in the story. The last time I think we got an update of this magnitude was One Piece chapter 801. When you subtract 801 from 1121, you get 320. Can you guess what Doflamingo's bounty is? It's 340, but I thought like it was so close. If Doflamingo's bounty had matched the separation between 801 and 1121, I would have gotten an Oda tattoo on my back. I'm not gonna lie. Like I was losing my mind for a little bit. But the whole point of this is to talk about check-ins, updates. Like I said, the last update we got was One Piece chapter 801, the Throne War speech. You see, every now and again, Oda gives us an update as to who are the major players in the world that we need to worry about. Because at some point, people get disqualified. At some point, the names change, and that's just the name of the game. You see, in One Piece chapter 801, Doflamingo was just taken down, and he was letting the world know, Oda, through Doflamingo, was letting the world know, this is where we are now. Doflamingo was saying, I had my reins on these monsters. Now, you've let them loose. Who rules the stretch of water? Is it one of the 4 emperors of the sea? Perhaps the 7 warlords who used their trickery to get by? Maybe those brats in the worst generation. But then they're the forces of justice. The navy reigns supreme, and the revolutionary army. The will of the people is stocked with fighters to be reckoned with. And the people of the D who have smoldered away beneath the currents of history. When will they show themselves? And where? Who will aid whom? Who will betray whom? You tell those celestial dragons in Marijoa, you will be dragged from your lofty perch. Now, everything in chapter 801 echoes what Vegapunk talks about. Doflamingo even talks about Roger conquering the Grand Line. What's interesting here, in the official translation, Doflamingo calls him Gold Roger. Doesn't say Gold D. He even references Whitebeard, who sat before the throne but never ascended. Doflamingo gave us an idea of what was to come, saying it was going to kick off the greatest battle for power in the history of pirate kind. Funny enough, you look at the Yonko, and you look at the people that were on this picture. This beautiful illustration. Kaido, Big Mom, Blackbeard, Shanks. You look at the warlords like Boa, Kuma, Mihawk. It's showing you who's currently relevant. Maria's not here. This is before Weevil was revealed. He's there. Buggy. Then we go to the Supernova. Bonnie, Luffy, Rouge, Capone, Law, Apu, Hawkins, Kid, Zoro. Everybody was in play. Then the Marines. Then the Revolutionaries. It is showing people that are going to change the game. Fast forward to One Piece chapter 1121. Vegapunk essentially does the same thing. He reiterates the importance of Gold Roger. He reiterates the importance of the D-Clan. He even makes reference to Whitebeard. But Vegapunk obviously goes a bit deeper, but this is essentially Vegapunk's version of the One Piece is real. But it's also kicking off the back half, I think the last version of this update. Now, there are vibe checks, like 956 when the warlords get abolished, or 957 giving us an indication of where the Yonko are, but this is a true update. Because see, people see that last panel and they see a really cool picture. I see that last panel and I see finality. I see major players that will not be there at the next update. Let's start with the top, the Yonko, Shanks, Luffy, Blackbeard, and Buggy. What roles will they play? For Shanks, one assumes that he's just waiting for Luffy. He's biding his time until he eventually clashes with Blackbeard, where a lot of people presumes he either dies or he just flat out loses to Blackbeard. But Shanks' role is set in stone to basically make way for Luffy by aiding him, more than likely by testing him. Shanks will not be the one to find the One Piece because that is not Shanks' role in the story. Buggy's a very interesting case because I think Buggy could legitimately make it to Laugh Tale, legitimately find the One Piece. Now, will he become the Pirate King? I don't think so, but I think Buggy will 1000% make a claim. 1000% always be relevant because I think Buggy specifically keeps things interesting. And because he has people around him like Crocodile, Mihawk, and he could elevate even more with people like Doflamingo and Weevil, things start to get a bit tricky on the Buggy side, but even he's limited. Now the 2 major players, Luffy and Blackbeard, I think the setup is there obviously for them, but they're still chasing their own goals. Luffy wants to become the Pirate King as well as Blackbeard, but Blackbeard's goals seem to have passed that. He's not just focused on the Pirate King title. He's focused on the world. And so Blackbeard is going to do anything to get that. Based on this chapter, I think he's already on the move to acquire more power to achieve these things. These 4 will obviously be major players. I think things get more interesting when you get to the other panel. Akainu, Dragon, Somebody, and Emu. And you have Kobe, Aokiji, Sabo, and Garling. Now, looking at these panels, You're like, okay, just a bunch of big names that will have an impact on the future of the story. I see game changers. First, Akainu, the fleet admiral. What will his decision be? Now that you know a bit better about things that's transpired in regards to the world government, what will your decision be? Will you continue to support them? Will you defect and separate? Akainu is one of those characters which I don't think can be redeemed. I would like for him to remain evil, and I think Oda is going to keep him as such, even though Oda is such a fan of Akainu. What do? You already don't like the Celestial Dragons, but can you stand alone against them? Do you have the moxie to declare that the Marines are separating themselves from the world government? Dragon, when will you make a move? When will you do something to impact this world even more than you already have? He's already done that by creating the organization of the revolutionaries, but bro, when is it gonna happen? I don't think we can predict it, considering that Dragon is like the wind, unpredictable. So when he finally makes his move, it will be felt. That's Silhouette. And people are saying Silhouette is crazy. In 2024, Oda's still doing silhouettes? Yes, Oda will never stop doing silhouettes. I think the last chapter of One Piece could be a silhouette. Here are options: the man with the burn scar, or probably the leader of the God Knights. I'm leaning towards the leader of the God Knights, because I think the man with the burn scar, if they show too much, or even a silhouette of him, it'll be able to tell who it actually is, because I think it's somebody we already know. But I think this is the leader of the God Knights, who's currently the strongest member of the God Knights. This person will, of course, encounter the revolutionaries, because that is their main opposition. Okay, quick edit. I keep calling this silhouetted person the leader of the God Knights. I don't literally mean that they're the leader of the God Knights, just that they're the strongest. I know Garling is the commander of the God Knights, so technically he's the leader of them, but I definitely do think if this is a member of the God Knights, this is the young guy that was at the front, and he is definitely the strongest. Dragon talked about them, and he said the God Knights have mobilized, so that's going to make things even more difficult. I think these are people to be respected. Now that's if that's the God Knight. If this is the man with the burn scar, that's even more interesting, but I think he's more passive than anything, considering he's just holding the poneglyph. At the end of the day, you just have to take it from him, which tells me that this person is somewhat trying to withhold the One Piece. They're not actively going after it. So I don't look at the man with the burn scar the same way that most people do, because I think he's more passive than active, considering what we know so far. Now, Imu. Personally, I think Imu's a Blackbeard victim. He could eradicate more countries. What is his decision after the Gorosei get back? There's so many things we need to know about Imu, and of course his history with Nefertari Lily, the D-Clan, House Nerona. So many questions there. So Imu is stamped. Now Kobe, why is he here? Personally, I don't think this has anything to do with strength. I know people are trying to say, yo, Kobe's up there. This isn't about strength to me. This is ideology. That's why it's next to Imu. And I think Kobe could represent the future of the Marines, the future of what the world will look like. And that's why he's going to be a major player in regards to shaping what the world looks like. We saw him already step out there, willing to die for the sake of justice. And I think that's always going to be Kobe. Now, when he gets to Aokiji, things get interesting, because I think this shows that Aokiji is not just a pawn, and he's going to be a guy that has a major role to play in the future of the story. Going back to Aokiji's conversation with Smoker, where he said, "I'm still me," that resonates every single time I see this character, considering people have started to change their thoughts on Aokiji, saying he's evil. Look what he did to Garp. He's really a Blackbeard pirate. Yes, he's a Blackbeard pirate, but they have similar goals. Now, what is Blackbeard's goal? To take down the world government. And Aokiji, think about everything traumatic that he suffered. Things that has changed his entire perspective on justice. It revolves around the world government. Even Akainu's decision to take out that ship, that was the mission of the world government, to suppress information, to destroy information. And Aokiji, he's come to the conclusion, I can't use the Marines' justice to carry out true justice, so I have to do it myself. And therefore, I get on the most powerful vehicle to do so. Some could say, well, just join the Straw Hats. Narratively, how does that even work, guys? You join the Blackbeard Pirates, whose goals are very lofty. I think my feelings changed about Aokiji when I saw him in that bar with Blackbeard. He'd already wiped out half his crew. If he wanted to capture Blackbeard or go after him, that was the time. Chose not to. It was about greater things. And I think those things revolve around the Celestial Dragons and the world government. Garling, what is his legacy? Because he was around in the days of Rocks and Roger and Whitebeard. What did you accomplish, Garling? What are you still trying to accomplish as the commander of the God Knights? Will you encounter Aokiji when Blackbeard ultimately comes for the throne? Do we see Garling and Shanks have a conversation? But ultimately, we know Garling is going to have a place in all this. Then we get to Sabo, the Flame Emperor, somebody who's been making waves intentionally and unintentionally based on his actions, basically declaring war in Mary Joa, freeing the slaves, being one of the few people to see Imu and the Gorosei's true forms, and live to tell about it, because Cobra, he dead. And Sabo, ultimately, based on his decisions and based on how impulsive he can be, we know he's going to have a major role towards the end of the story. But Oda is telling us these are the major players. But what did Oda not tell us? Who is he leaving out that I think could have have been on this list. Personally, I think Fujitora, based on the decisions he's already made, prostrating in front of the world, taking blame for Dressrosa, contesting Akainu and going against his wishes because, well, Fujitora is that type of guy, putting in the bid to abolish the warlord system because he felt like the warlords were a waste of time and that they were ultimately a liability, which proves to be true. Then I think even someone like Big News Morgan's propaganda, news, these things cannot be quantified when it comes to moving the people. And Big News, based on his platform and how much he can impact the world, I would have liked to see him in a panel under this hypothetical panel. Really, what will his decision be? Will he join the fight? Will he stay out of it as he typically does? Smoker, what will his decision be? Where has he been? Has he gotten stronger? Has his ideals changed at all? Because I'm really interested in the Marines and how they approach this going forward, knowing what you know now. Because some Marines are going to defect and some are going to be like, well, it is what it is. Oda just set up the end game of the story so perfectly that we're in a situation that the right and wrong decision can make everything crumble. And that's why we're in the end game of One Piece. And Oda just set it up so beautifully. Let's do something interesting, right? Out of all the characters here, who will be the next character to fall first? Will it be one of the Yonko? Will it be the Navy Fleet Admiral? Will it be Sabo? Will it be Aokiji? Place your bets right now. If I had to bet right now, the first character to fall out of all these characters, unfortunately, I would say Shanks. Considering the end game, I would say Shanks is probably the character that falls. So imagine that, if Shanks is the first guy to go out of this group. Holy. Guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about it? Again, give me your character you think could fall first, and let me know your thoughts about the end game of the story. This is an update, guys. This isn't just a bunch of people thrown in a panel. These are impact players, and their decisions are going to shape the future of One Piece. Let's see how it goes.